हेलो गाइस। मेरे ख्याल से in this podcast there'll be a lot of people who will be from the fraternity of architecture for sure because you have seen the thumbnail. And let me give you a brief introduction about what we are going to talk today. Architecture is practiced by all of us, and as fraternity of the architecture field, we all tend to be running in that rat race of creating huge buildings, great buildings, buildings which are iconic, and also buildings which can give and make money for us, we architects. Definitely the strive for creating great architecture will always be there, but to learn and gain knowledge about them through various writing is a different field altogether, which is not explored by many of us. Yes, I am talking about architectural writing today, and this is one of the most powerful tools that we have and should be explored so that we understand that exactly how we should nurture and enhance the entire field of architecture and what is going on in this entire field where even the smallest and the biggest thing can be captured and can be known through reading and writing. Architectural writing is something which is a very tough job. Going through numerous architects, talking to them about their work, and also getting them documented is a task which very less can do. And today we have a guest with us who has excelled in this entire field. She's a pioneer going worldwide with her writing, and we want to welcome today Apurva Bose Dutta, who has been a pioneer in this field of architectural writing. We'll gain a lot of knowledge from her by listening to her and her experiences about what this field is all about. If you are interested, how you can get into this field and how you can make a mark if you are interested in going in for architectural writing. So let's welcome Apurva Bose Dutta. Before we go ahead with this video, I would like to make a very small request to all our viewers. We have been getting a lot of love from you people, and a lot of guys are watching our podcasts on a daily basis. But we see that only 20% of you guys are actually subscribing to our channel. Please help us growing more by subscribing us because this gives us a motivation and a reason to enhance more, bring better videos for you guys, and create another set of lineage of videos where and podcasts where you can be benefited. Thanks. Please like, share, and subscribe. So welcome to this session, Apurva. It's such a great honor that you're here to discuss a lot about architectural writing, and we are going to do that very elaborately in this session. How are you?
Great, and thanks, Arindam, for the invitation. It's lovely to be doing this for Big Fat Mantra.
Great, great, great. So we'll start with something where we would like to know that what has been your journey all this time from being an architect to an architectural, getting into architectural writing. We'll start with from where you did your, architectural B.Arch, architectural graduation. How was your, times then, and how did it come up to you that, this is where you want to head up to in the later run? So give us a small brief on that.
Okay, so I've been born and brought up in Chandigarh, so that's my hometown. So I did my architecture from the Chandigarh College of Architecture. I graduated in 2005, and I drifted into architectural writing because I took this elective of architectural journalism in the final year of my college. And I'm not sure if you know, Arindam, but Chandigarh College of Architecture is the first institute in India which started this elective of, architectural writing. So I drifted into architectural writing through this elective because writing had been a hobby for me. I was writing since I was 7 or something. And yes, so right after I graduated, I started working with Architecture Plus Design Journal. That is one of the leading journals of India. And that was in Delhi. So I worked with them. I worked in the core team. And then I worked in the core team of Indian Architect and Builder for some time. And then I moved to UK for a bit. But since 2009, when I moved to Bangalore, where I'm currently residing, I have been working independently. So, as an independent architectural writer, I collaborate with architectural institutions, organization, firms to communicate architecture and design through different communication channels. So it has been a wonderful journey. I think I'm going to be
So
completing
when
almost
we talk
19.
about, sorry to break you, but when we talk about architectural institution, can you just elaborate that what are these institutions which with whom you collaborate and do your work for?
Um, so since I work independently, I have kind of had a multifaceted career. So when I work with architectural institutions, I work in the role of providing training initiatives for the institution. So I have worked with a lot of institutions in India, and a lot of them overseas also, because now we have the online mode, so it's just much more easier. So I have been providing training initiatives in architectural writing for a very long time, in the offline mode and in the online mode. So though I do this on professional platforms also, but I've been doing it for academic platforms where I do these workshops ranging from a 2 hour to a 5 day workshop in architectural institutions, where I do these different kind of talks and seminars to help the students understand that there is also an option called architectural writing, which exists after architecture. And unfortunately, if I have to speak especially of India, there are not many institutions in India who really focus on the importance of writing in architecture. And that's why it does not feature there in the architectural curriculums in India. So I have been in the I have been coordinating with these institutes or collaborating with these institutes. Either I'm doing a workshop. I've also done with them full courses, and both in offline and online mode. So and otherwise, even if it's not a workshop or if it's not a full-fledged course, then there are some talks, 2 or 3 hours talks, basically to help people understand, whether it's the students or the faculties, that architecture writing is not only a profession that has to be embraced by a few of us, but the fact that writing has to be an important tool in the architects or designers toolkit.
Wonderful. I think that really holds a lot of value in this entire fraternity of architecture, because I think there's something where we are losing a lot of information to be gathered, and that's not getting gathered because of very few writers like you who are there in the field. I think we should encourage people to get into that mode and spread these words more through architectural writing. I think that's great. Give me some milestones that you have achieved till date, and the things that you value really, while you have done your work all this time.
So if I have to talk about some milestones as in professional milestone, so Arindam, I have always felt that it's not only important to be successful in life. What is actually more important and what is more critical is how long you can continue to stay relevant. So you can be successful for 4 years, 5 years, but that does not really serve the purpose. So I think success and time are both important when you're talking about milestones. So as I said earlier, I've always tried to have a very multifaceted career, and that's also what I try to talk about, that keeping the core of writing, one can do a lot of things. So if I have to, contextualize it, giving examples of what I have kind of been doing. So yes, I've been collaborating with architectural and design magazines worldwide, writing about architecture. So that's one thing that's I've always been doing. If I have to further go about talking about milestones in writing, of course, the two books that I've come up with. The first one was Architectural Voices of India. It was in 2017. And the next book was Architectural Inheritance and Evolution in India, that got published last year. I think those have been two milestones if I really have to talk about writing, pure writing. But as I said, there are a lot of things that I do keeping the core of writing. So I also work with publications on their journals or some specific issues. So I remember when in 2013, the Indian Institute of Architects, they have the in-house journal called Journal of Indian Institute of Architects. They were coming up with a special issue, and I curated it and I guest edited it. It was called simply Architectural Journalism. And that was the first time that an Indian journal had devoted an entire issue on architectural journalism. So this was like 11 years back. Right now, what I'm doing is there is an organization called Arcasia, which is an international organization comprising 22 Asian countries as its members. And they have their in-house journal called Architecture Asia. So for a special edition of theirs, which is based on writing and literature, I'm again curating it. I'm again, guest editing it. So that's another milestone that, I would probably would like to mention. And
When you say
as
that
I said, I've been.
I'm sorry, I'm cutting you down. When you're saying just
That's
just
okay.
for the viewers' understanding and to be more elaborate to them, just to understand that when you're curating it, so is it like a group of people who are working together in this for this entire thing, or there are specific areas where you're working and you're giving your own kind of insights? How does this work? Like, what does curation mean in a broader term?
So if I have to take the example of these two journals, so when I say curation, one, I said that this is the theme that I'm working on. So right from the theme, right from what are the different topics that are going to be written on the theme, and finding the right people to write about them. So for this international journal that I'm working on, it's a wonderful one where different themes were looked at. Which are the right people to work on those themes? Then I approached those scholars or those writers or those architects to write on the themes. I gave them a topic, and when they they wrote the article and gave it back to me, I kind of gave my feedback on that. So that is one part. The second part is when you're doing the layouts, what kind of illustrations, what kind of images will go with the article. So when you say curation, I'm not sure if generally everyone does it this way, but I think when I step in fact, when I was the curator for my second book also. When I stepped in as the curator, it was from the beginning till the end. So this is curation of journals, as I said, but I also curate a lot of events and discourses. So for example, in 2021, there was a global summit which was being organized by a mainstream media house, and they appointed me as the curator. So since it was a 2-day summit, again, what is the theme of the summit, or what is it that we are going to discuss? There were around 40 speakers on board. So I kind of made an entire list of which speakers should be invited, got in touch with the speakers, had mock sessions with the speakers because, that time it was the pandemic and it was all online. So had a mock session with the speakers, kind of had a very broad structure of what is the aim of the discussion that is going to happen? And then, because it's an event, what is the way the promotion is going to happen? What is the pre-coverage that's going to happen? Which are the media houses that can collaborate with such an event? What will be the role of the media houses? So that is also one kind of curation where you are curating events. I've also kind of curated competitions. Right, so it's the same from start to finish. You are kind of responsible for everything. So when you say there is a team, yes. So for example, when I'm working with these magazines, they have their team who does the layouts and who do a bit of coordination. But there has to be someone leading it. So at that time, as for that issue, I'm the one leading it. So I think, yeah, so that is about curation. And yeah, so some of those milestones that I would like to say, and probably also I would also like to say that I would like to mention that since I said that there are a lot of training initiatives that I do. So I started a 6-week certified course on architectural writing during the pandemic. It ran for 2 years, 10 editions, and around 450 plus participants across 17 countries were trained and mentored. So I think that's also a milestone that I would like.
That's a huge number that you're mentioning. Okay, great.
Yes, and the interesting part, Arindam, was that only 30% were students. 70% were professionals. So, because I guess when we are students, we don't realize that writing is so important. But once we get into the professional field, we realize that we never studied it during, our education, architecture, bachelor or master degrees.
That's very true, and I truly believe that. I think while we were doing our BArch, we have missed out on a lot of things. I think that's capturing those things in itself is a time-taking stuff. And I think we can explore more and more through these. Great. So you said the first book that you had written was back in 2017. What was the name of that book, Purva?
It was called Architectural Voices of India.
Architectural Voices of India. And the recent one that you did last year was?
It was Architectural Inheritance and Evolution in India.
Great. Okay. I would like to ask you that in between these two books, like, what is the difference that you found in your work, and any challenges that specifically came to you? And in a nutshell, if you can also talk about the challenges that you face with, architectural writing.
Okay. I'm surprised that you don't ask me that why are there only 2 books in a long career of 19 years.
I think even in that duration, writing 2 books is a major task. I think even and that too in a specific field like architecture, it's a tough task, because me being in the same profession, I can understand that stuff. And I think I can really vouch on that whatever you have done would have been a very tough task. But I would like to know it from you.
Yes. So yeah. So I think I think an architectural writer's ultimate aim, or whatever goal you can say, is actually writing a book. But it's not that. As I said, I've had a multifaceted career, so I'm doing different things. So because when you're working on a book, it's crazy. It's crazy. You kind of lose sense of everything else. So to give that amount of time is also important. I think there are some similarities and some differences that I've noticed. My first book was in 2017, and it was conversations with 19 illustrious architects from India. So right from senior people from Doshi sir, Raj Reval sir, SD Sharma sir, to the middle generation like Kamal Malik or Brinda Sumaya, Sanjay Mohe, and to a more younger generation like Sonali Manat Rastogi, Sanjay Puri. So there were 19 architects. Those were conversations with those architects. And my recent book, it is on architectural legacies and architectural families in India. So there are 10 families, and there are 44 architect family members who are featured in the book. So one thing that I would say that could be probably common in both the books is that I'm always very focused on the journeys and the people behind the design or people behind the product. So, I don't, yeah, obviously I speak about the final product, I speak about the final building, but I'm very interested to know the minds, the theories, the philosophies, the journeys that, these people have actually traversed. So I think one common thing would be that both these books are actually more about people, journeys, and theories than about their built spaces. And yeah, the first one was in the form of a interview, and the second one was in the form of essays. But the content for both the books was generated by research and very, very detailed conversations with all the people. So whether those were 19 architects in the first book or 44 architects in my second book. Challenges, I would say that. So when you are attempting a book for the first time, so today, as you said, Arindam, it is very difficult writing a book, and getting it published too. But today, as you would have seen, that people are getting their books self-published, authors are investing in a lot of money, and so you also have people with very minimal experience coming and publishing their books. I think I was very, very clear that I would not go in for self-publishing. I would go in for traditional publishing, which is like a very, very, stressful kind of a publication industry. And I also wanted to write a book when I thought that I was kind of established in the field and I had something to say. But yes, I think in my first book, because I also work independently, so I do take on a lot of work. So my first book, the publishers were Cambridge, and though they ensured that the book was really well seen internationally, unfortunately in India, I realized that I was the one who really had to go all out and promote the book, and which actually also happened with my second book. And I have actually come to realize that an author's work does not finish at just coming up with a book, right from whether it's curating the book, coordinating with all these architects who were really, really busy people. That takes a lot of time, looking at the layouts, and then later also the promotion. The author really has to, go and do a lot of things. So in fact, in my first book, there were things that happened which shouldn't have happened. So, for example, an Indian publisher, they signed a contract with me wanting to publish my first book. After 2 years, they just backed out, saying that we have decided not to publish architecture books, and I couldn't do anything about it. I also remember a very well-known architect who featured in my first book. When the layouts of the book were also made, that architect came up with a mandate that if you want to kind of publish the pictures of my project in your book, you need to pay me for that. Now that came very end moment. So the publishers obviously said no, and that money went from my pocket. So what has happened in the second book is, obviously it was again very stressful, the second book also, but I think I've become much smarter. I am more aware of how things are to be done, and I can probably protect myself a lot more than I could protect myself in my first book when I really didn't know what was happening. But apart from the fact, I must tell you that leave aside these responsibilities of what an author has to do besides just authoring the book. The fact that there were 19 architects in my first book and there were 44 architects in my second book, and I am very keen on verifying facts with the architects, right? So I do very thorough research and I want the facts to be there. So I do cross-check a lot with them. So I think that also took a lot of time, but I must say all these people who were a part of my book, right from the senior people like Uttam Jain sir, Raj Rebal sir, S.D. Sharma sir, Doshi sir, or everyone else, they were very, very supportive. And I think the one thing that I take away from both my books is the kind of humility that these people have. They didn't really have to be a part of the book. They didn't really have to support me, given they are legendary people. But the fact that they did this, the fact that they believed in me, believed in the book, I think it helped me to become a better person. I learned a lot of humility. So maybe the journeys have been very, very stressful, but I think these two journeys with my two books, they have been the best kind of journey that I could have in this career of architectural writing.
One question that I would like to, know from you, and it's out of the context. Like while I was listening to you and the challenges that you faced, something which came up in my mind, and I think it would be very valuable for the young kids who are emerging as architectural writers today. I would like to know from you that would you like to give them certain pointers where which can help them in safeguarding their interests while they are, kind of publishing their books, or, what are those, kind of pointers they should be very crucial, very cautious about, uh, in maybe they can kind of create a kind of an agreement or kind of a legal document where it can safeguard them from these hassles, last minute hassles, and those kind of stuffs.
So, Arindam, I hate to say this, but a lot of things which are there legally also, they don't work. Leave alone the things that are not there legally. So, firstly, if we have to talk about like copyright issues, and there are no really copyright issues, especially in India. And so many times I've had my own published articles which have been printed under someone's else's name. I run these training courses where people come, they take notes, and then they conduct a similar course with a similar structure on another platform. So the only thing that I always say is that we need to protect ourselves. To the best ability we can do. I know there are ways for people to still plagiarize your work. So, for example, when I am doing these training initiatives, I have made it mandatory that I will not let people record my course, whether it's offline or whether it's an online thing. So that's the only way to protect yourself. I also tell people that, see, once your work is published, then anyway, people know that your work is published and someone still wants to plagiarize and everything, it is okay. But when your work is not published, so for example, when I was doing this course on architectural writing, and the participants had to submit me assignments, I would never share it with everyone as an open source because these were all unpublished articles, right? So that way, when your articles are not published, please don't keep on sharing it with anyone. So, for example, a lot of people tell me that I've written an article and I want to send it to a magazine. If the magazine is known and is authentic, you don't really have to worry about that your work can be plagiarized. But if your magazine is not known, what I would recommend is that you send a note to the magazine saying that you have written on this theme and whether the magazine is interested. Don't send your article straight away. That is very, very important. So that is another way how you can protect yourself. And the third way I would say it is not only protecting ourselves. I would say that when we are also writing, if there are references that have to be included, if there are quotes that have been given by other people, please
Absolutely.
include it.
Yes.
As a footnote or as an endnote in article. So
Giving them the credits, basically.
yes, though in research papers only, it's mandatory, right, that you give all the references. But I would say in any kind of writing, if you're using someone else's code or using anything, you must reference them. So that
Really,
way,
that's very important.
you are kind of respecting your work and you're respecting the person
Others are.
also whom
Yeah.
So that I would say is very important.
That those are very valuable pointers, Purva. So, Apurva, my next question would be like, what is your experience as a freelancer, and and working independently? Give us some insights about how you have experienced this field, and how would you also kind of give your value pointers to the juniors or people who are emerging in this field.
So Arindam, that's also a question that a lot of interested architectural writers, they always ask me that right after our bachelor's or a master's, should we start working independently? And I always say no. That if you want to work independently or if you want to work as a freelancer, you need to have a base. base to be able to start on their own. But yeah, so I worked in the core teams for a few years, and then I started working independently since 2009. And there is a quote which I read somewhere that one of the beauties of freelancing or working independently is that you decide what your definition of success is. All right, so there are no set boundaries about what success is. It is about what you want to deliver and how you want to deliver. So if I have to talk in terms of architectural writing, when you work independently or when you work as a freelancer, you pick up the magazines or organizations you want to collaborate on. You pick up the themes you want to write on. So that has given, actually, freelancing or working independently has given me the opportunity to be collaborating with various organizations, various publications across the world. So I have been able to diversify myself. If I had been working, just with one magazine or one organization, I do not think, that kind of diversification could have happened. And I also, because of this diversification, I get to travel a lot, which I really enjoy. And I think that's an architectural writer should be very, very aware of what is happening around them in terms of architecture and design. So travel is important, network is also important. But having listed those advantages of working as an independent professional, I have to say that there are some disadvantages. Even if not disadvantages, there are a few things that one definitely needs to ensure. One is you have to be really, really disciplined about your work. I'm someone who is very serious and disciplined about my work. I'm very committed to timelines, and I don't work when I need to. I always work. And when you don't have anyone telling you that do this, do that, or if you're not working under a boss, it can be very difficult. That's why being disciplined is very important. And obviously, when you're working independently, you also manage a lot of things, right? You're not just writing the article, you're managing a lot of things. So it becomes stressful. But the good point is that all the experience, all the knowledge, and all the learning, all the experimentation, it actually comes to you. So that's a lot that you can imbibe from being an independent professional. The other thing, Arindam, especially in India, I'm sure you must be aware of this, but people who work independently or who are freelancers, they are taken very lightly, people in general, and I don't talk about people who are in the same profession. Generally, people think that freelancers or people who work independently, they cannot have a hectic life. They have a very, easy life. But I have to say that my schedule as an independent professional is way more hectic than what it was when I was working in the core teams of publications. The other thing that I would say that it is very important to build a very strong network when you're working independently. Otherwise, where do you get your leads from? Where do you get to know what is happening in architecture? Everything cannot be there in the newspaper. Everything cannot be there in the books. Everything cannot be there when you travel, meaning you can't travel across the world to understand what is happening. So you have to network, you have to take a lot of initiatives to understand which are the avenues you can pursue, which organizations can you collaborate with. So that is something that you really need to do as an independent professional. And the last thing that I would say that when you're working independently, you need to promote yourself, as crude as it may sound.
And I can see
But
that
when
in all your social media posts. I really adore the way you keep on, you're so steady with your posts and they are so regular. I think that's really a very hard work that you do on
Yes, and I'm so happy that you say that it's hard work. It is a lot of hard work, but
it is a lot.
Anandam,
It is
it
a
is a
lot.
lot of harder work because you realize when you're not connected with any one organization, they will not be promoting you on a regular basis. So sometimes when you collaborate with organizations, they might put up a poster of you about the collaboration, but on a regular basis, no one is going to promote you.
Absolutely.
And the way you promote you is also has to be dignified. You can't be going out there. showing your CVs or resumes, you have to say things which make an impact, which make a difference. And it's not about you, it's about the subject, which is of architecture and architecture writing, that I talk about. So yes, so as crude it may sound, but you need to be out there. You need to promote yourself in the best way
Very
possible to
true, and
talk
I
about the
truly
work.
believe in that. Yeah, that's very important. That's very important. Great. So, Apurva, tell us how does architectural writing really create a difference in today's context and also in the Indian context?
Okay. So though you talk about today's context, but Arindam, I must also say that generally, because there has been a lot of visibility around architectural writing in the past few years, but I have to say that it's not now that we have been talking about the difference that architectural writing can be made. And since you mentioned the Indian context, if I have to speak about our legendary architects, they were always talking about it. I remember Doshi sir and I had so many conversations about, writing in architecture. We all know what a prolific writer, Doshi sir was. Obviously, Charles Correa sir was another prolific writer. I remember S.D. Sharma sir. This was in 2005 when, I had graduated and I wanted to take up architectural writing, and he's in Chandigarh and I was in Chandigarh. And he actually told me at that time that architectural writing and journalism, they're going to see huge growth in the coming years. And then Uttam Jain sir, he's a part of my, second book. And when I was doing a lot of research on him, I came across one of his interviews of the 1990s where he talks about architectural writing, journalism, and criticism. And he says how important it is to introduce it in our academic curriculum. So though we feel that the impact of writing in architecture is only happening over the past few years, but this is something that has been going on for many years, many decades. Many architects have been speaking about it. So one is obviously architecture is an integration of art and science. So it needs some kind of interpretation. It needs some kind of analysis, and that is where writing comes in, because writing can analyze architecture, writing can interpret architecture. But the other important thing that I think architectural writers can do is they can bring society closer to architecture. You also know that we always say that architecture is kind of an elite profession where we are all talking within ourselves and there is no connection with the society. That is where writers can come in. They can tell society, they can understand what the society needs in terms of architecture and planning. And that is why we have to increase the channels of engagement with masses to help them understand architecture, what they want, what they are getting, and what they deserve. So I think architectural writers and architectural writing that way can also make a huge impact on societies. And obviously, barring societies, if we have to talk about in the architectural industry, I think writing is a great way to start discourses which are important for the architecture and building industry. So I think there are many different ways how writing can impact architecture. And the important thing is that writing is actually thinking, right? So when we write, we kind of put our thoughts out there on paper in front of everyone. And I think a healthy exchange of thoughts is very important for any industry to flourish.
Yeah, I think it's very important that uh, the fraternity should the fraternity focuses a lot on maybe practices or maybe the I think there's a lot to do with making money also and striving hard in this field because it's a tough field. But eventually, I think they are getting lost with exactly what they are doing or where the essence lies. I think a lot of it can be revived through architectural writing. Uh, I hope you agree with me on that part.
Yeah, I agree. And I would actually also like to put in here that, since we're talking about the architecture profession as such and how writing can also impact architecture, I think it's very important for us. And since you talk about, the challenges of being an architect, I think it's very important for all of us to understand that trained architects are not only supposed to build spaces. There are a lot of options and avenues that are possible for them, architectural writing being one of them. So, because we generally have this mindset that if we've done our 5 years of architecture, then we have to make buildings. That's it. There is nothing else that we should be doing. But I think that notion, that mindset really has to change because we learn a lot of things in architecture, right? And we can implement it in different avenues.
Different.
And
So
yeah, architectural writing is one of them.
truly agree on that. Yeah, absolutely. What do you feel can be the future of architectural writing in India?
It can be very bright. In fact, Arindam, there's been a lot of growth. I started out in 2005 when there were no resources, there were no career paths, there were 2, 3 magazines and nothing. Obviously, a lot was happening overseas, but there was nothing happening in India. So from 2015, if I have to see the growth now, it is tremendous. I remember the first time I wrote an article on Rediff on architectural writing and journalism. It was in 2007, and the kind of comments I received was that we don't understand why would someone waste 5 years on architecture and then get into writing. But today the scenario is very, very less. There's scores of people, not only students but professionals who are interested in architectural writing and want to get into it. So it's very different. There's been a huge amount of growth.
Right.
But talking about the future in the Indian context, I think it can be very bright, provided that everyone starts accepting that architectural writing is a serious field, right? And the second is that it can impact architecture in a huge way, and it needs to be recognized, encouraged, and respected. There are a couple of things that should be done, and I think everyone here has a responsibility. Firstly, when you talk about publication houses, who are employing these writers, I think publication houses should employ more writers with an architecture and design background because at the end of it, I think people who are trained in architecture, they have a better understanding of architecture and design. So publication houses should employ more writer with architecture and design background. They should pay them well. They should pay them on time. Unfortunately, I know of some very well-known portals who are doing very well, but they are paying peanuts to their writers, so it's kind of exploiting them. So that's something we have to rectify. The other thing I would also like to say, since I was talking about these training initiatives that I conduct, I also know of some organizations who are providing internships to these budding architectural writers. Now, when you say internships, I'm sure Arindam, this issue of internships in architecture also, not only architecture writing. So when I talk about internships in architecture writing, I would think that if you're providing an internship, you are supposed to train the writers and you're also supposed to pay them, right? Internship would not mean that you're asking the writers to send their write-ups and you are building your portal based on their write-ups without even training them in any way. So that is not internships.
That's wrong.
Overseas,
That's wrong.
that's completely wrong. And this issue of payment and everything, it's there in the architecture, mainstream architectural field also. So that's completely wrong. Overseas, a lot of publications, they offer internships, but those are proper internships where they are providing training and they are also, kind of paying the interns. And I also think, when I talk about these training initiatives, I also think architectural and design institutes need to allot some funds for training in niche fields like architectural writing. Because if you have faculty who do not have any understanding of architectural writing and they are training students, or you have freshers without any experience who are training students, then this is not training. And unfortunately, in this entire noise of architectural writing or architectural journalism or architectural criticism, I think somewhere the seriousness of architectural writing is getting lost. Many over enthusiastic people with minimal experience in architectural writing are training others. So this is something that this needs to be changed. The other thing, because I spoke about acknowledgement of architectural writing, I've also been speaking to a lot of organizations since many years that when you have these awards for architecture, why don't you, introduce a category of architectural writing? That is one way of
Absolutely.
acknowledging the field.
Absolutely.
And a few organizations are doing it, and I hope, the rest of the organizations can do that.
Right.
But I would say, Arindam, that finally, the responsibility is on us writers, right? What is the kind of work we are doing? How authentic is the work that we're doing? How we are training ourselves? How we are upskilling ourselves? So, and we are not writing for portals where they are not even paying us. So, at the end of it, we should ensure that we respect ourselves so that the people, they also start respecting our work. And that is the only way to elevate the future of architectural writing, whether in India or overseas.
Absolutely. And I think you have really pointed it out well. Tell me, in India, the colleges, when they look into their academic curriculum, how many colleges do come across and get in touch with you so that you can give an insight on architectural writing to their students or hold workshops? Are colleges really taking interest in these areas, or it's like it's still up to go somewhere in the long run? How's it going?
So, yeah, just to give you an idea of the statistics, so I think right now we have around 380 colleges in India, out of which there are 50 colleges who are already providing it as an elective. But out of those 50 colleges, there are actually just 9 colleges in entire of India who really consider writing as a serious subject in architecture.
Huh?
Out of those,
Only eight.
I think I said only 8 or 9 colleges
Yeah.
in India who really understand the importance. The
That
other
is what
50,
I'm saying. Out of 380, you're saying only eight colleges do understand it seriously.
yeah, otherwise there are 50 colleges, but I've had so many students where they say that the faculty who is actually teaching them, they don't really themselves have an understanding of architectural
Okay.
writing.
Okay.
There are a lot of institutes that get in touch with me. I think in March, I did a 5-year 5-day course for SPA Vijayawada. Then these kind of workshops happen. I've done something with SEPT, but that was an online thing. That was a shorter thing. So I've actually done it across India. And recently, there is this institute called Avni Institute in Kerala. They had this essay writing competition, and they declared 4 winners. And the winners were from across India, and one of them was from outside India. And they realized that the winners, they had the potential and the interest in architectural writing. So the Avni Institute, they organized a workshop for the winners with me, and the workshop was for, I think, 4 sessions, 10 or 12 hours, where they focused on how these students could take architectural writing as a career, or kind of integrate it into their architecture practice. So there are some institutions like this who would probably say a talk offline mode or online mode. I've done an elective also for a college in Pune, and a lot of workshops that have happened. So I think there are many colleges which have kind of reached out to me, and even not for a 3-day or a 5-day workshop, then probably for a 1-day workshop or a 4 or a 5 hour. In fact, there are many institutes in which the faculties who were teaching architectural writing to the students, they actually came to my course, and they got an understanding of how architectural writing has to be taught, and they have kind of taken it further to their students. So I think somewhere the importance and acknowledgement is definitely there, but I think there has to be tools to understand that it's an important field and how they can take it further in their curriculum.
So now I would really like to know from you and few words from you that you would like to give as a suggestion to those people who are now wanting to be in architectural writing, uh, where you would like to give some thoughts or some value pointers to them, then what they should focus on.
My first value pointer or my first suggestion is that only go in for architectural writing if you're interested in it. Because, a career may not be the defining force in everyone's life, but it is actually an important part of one's life. So you should always go in for a career that you're passionate about. So you should not take up architectural writing just because you do not want to go into architecture. That's not the correct way of choosing a career. You have to choose a career which can become a stimulating part of your life. And the second pointer I would say is that there is not a lot of training happening in architectural writing. So please realize that you have to train yourself, you have to upskill yourself. Obviously, there are a lot of courses being offered, but this still happens to be an unconventional career choice. So do remember that you have to train yourself, whether it's through books, whether it's through courses, or whether it's through networking, whether it's through just trying and understanding architecture more deeply. And then obviously there are other pointers as something like conviction and discipline. That is very important, whether it's architectural writing or whether it's any other field that you are doing. Things like luck, destiny, they are all there, but one should realize that the core values of hard work, discipline, and integrity, they will surpass luck and destiny any day. I would also say that people who want to get into architecture writing, uh, start networking, start traveling, start being more aware. So the only reason why I asked you to network and why I ask you to travel is to become very, very aware. Because as an architectural writer, you have to be very aware of what's happening around you, whether in your context or whether in some other country. So raise your awareness about architecture. Read a lot. Reading is very important if if you have to write. And yes, as I said, because I get to meet a lot of people in the industry, from India and overseas. The one thing that I've always taken, especially from these legendary people, is that it's very important to be positive, be humble, be open to receiving inspiration. So I think it boils down to be just try and be good human beings, because I think the moment our aim is to be a good human being, then we definitely do well in our profession, whether it's of architecture, architectural writing, or any other profession.
Totally agree on that, Apurva. I think those are very good words for, uplifting the morale of new writers coming into this field. So, Apurva, thanks for this valuable session. I think it was a great session talking to you about architectural writing. I think it is very important for all of us to know where architectural writing is heading on to in today's world, and how important it is for us as a fraternity of architecture. It's evident that it creates a lot of impact within the fraternity. So I'm sure you have created a great impact by talking about it today in this session, and people who are really looking forward to go into that field would really be inspired, to know about this from you. Also, I would ask all the viewers who are watching this session that, the links to your books are there in the description. If you are interested in knowing more about the book, please check the links in the description. Also, they can visit your website. It's also there in the description, and know more about your works. It was amazing to have a talk with you today, Apurva. Thanks a lot for being here. Anything that you
Thanks, Alison. It's been my pleasure. I've seen the different kind of discussions that you're having on your channel, and it's been a pleasure speaking to you. So thank you again for inviting me.
Thanks a lot, Apurva.